Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We are working through some of the stuff in our back room, some of the really cool games that we've got in. And this is a repair that we're doing for a customer. It is a ALOHA pinball machine. Wow. Gottlieb ALOHA. I've never messed with this one before. These are my favorite type, these ones that I haven't seen before that obviously have a lot of character to them. So someone has repainted this. I kind of like how they did it. I don't know how similar it is to the original paint job. That's pretty cool. So it's a Hawaiian theme, I would call that. Right? Pretty cool. It looks like the Backglass has a little trouble going on. The hula dancer unfortunately has leprosy. We see that a lot on those Backglasses. We'll see what we can do with that. And then here is the cabinet. The playfield actually looks to be in really nice shape, which is kind of common from this era. A lot of them are pretty nice. This one appears to be that way. We'll set it all up. But yeah, the cabinet has been repainted at some point. It looks like it was a while back, though. So they painted it white, and then they put a black splatter paint on it, which isn't really super correct, I don't think, but they did a pretty good job. I mean, you know. And then it's got some kind of like mold or rust or something on it. It kind of looks like rust. So I don't know what that's from, but these things, they get beat up a little bit. Personally, I don't mind that at all. It's just part of their character and their history. You can see that this front door has been banged up pretty bad. And it's been repainted. You can see the rust under it. So not a super restoration or anything, but they've been keeping it going. Now, there's some yellow overspray here where maybe that was on a different game even. I wouldn't be surprised if that was on something that was yellow and they pulled it off and put it on this because they needed the lockdown part. The bottom of it is in nice shape, very solid. And then the head here is in nice shape too. If you look at this, that crack there, I'm wondering if maybe they used some filler on it when they painted it and the filler has cracked. It almost looks like Bondo. But all in all, it's in good shape. Now the legs have the same rust on them. You know, we would call that rust on a metal leg, but I don't know what you call it on the cabinet when the wood's doing it. But it's, you know, ultimately that doesn't even matter. So these are some legs that they painted white. You can see the same splatter paint on them because whenever they painted the cabinet, the legs were on it. There's different levels of restoration. I don't even like using the word restoration for what we do. Typically, I would take the legs off when I paint it, but I don't really hate them for doing it. The thing was probably really rough, and so they did this, and it came out looking pretty decent, and it's at least presentable, and that's the level they took it to. A lot of people would take it to a much farther level and go all in on it, but it would take you a lot more time and a lot more money, too. But this is how they chose to do it. So, to me, it's always interesting just seeing how these games have survived and what's happened to them over the years and what the owner chose to do to it and all of that. So, like seeing one with a kind of custom paint job like this, I think it's cool. That's what they chose to do, and the thing made it. It's here right now, and it's going to get fixed. So that's pretty cool. So it's a two-player game. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and set it up. I'll put it on a cart, get the legs on it, and we'll go from there. All right, we've got it up on its legs. Now, the front legs are bent all to crap. But they are what they are. Okay, so the most important thing about this one is the Backglass. We're losing the Backglass. Now that I can see it, it's pretty rough. So it's flaking right now. Big portions of it are trying to come off. So this is already gone. You can just see there's several areas that have like significant paint flaking off. So we're going to try to save that as best we can by clearing it. It's just a shame because it's a really beautiful back glass. I just hate seeing them whenever they start falling apart. If you look on the back, when we took the door off, it's just a shame, but hey, it happens. The reason that happens, there's all kinds of stuff that does it, but the main reason that happens is if you leave it somewhere that's not air conditioned, or and by air conditioned I don't necessarily mean an AC unit. I just mean that the temperature stays the same, so it's heated and cooled basically. What happens is during the day it gets hot, and then at night it gets cold, and during the day it gets hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. And the glass actually stretches and contracts just a little bit in the temperatures, but the paint does even more. So they contract and shrink, or shrink and expand at different rates, and so it makes the paint just pop right off the glass. And now somebody has touched this up before. You see right there where it's been touched up. So whenever we're going to clear it to try to save all this, but whenever we do, it's going to lock that in. So it's pretty close. It's not too bad, but that they won't be able to remove that anymore. That'll all get sealed in whenever we seal it. So hopefully we can save most of this. I don't know how easily we can get it out of there without a bunch of it dropping off, but we'll do what we can. The playfield itself, like I said, is in pretty nice shape. There's a little bit of wear, but looks like that they've cleaned it up a little bit and put a ring kit on it. I think Joey mentioned that we don't need to do the playfield. I'm going to ask him about it tomorrow. We got to do something with that back glass though, or it's going to fall apart. And they wrote the price on the apron. That's kind of funny. But that's cool. Okay, so let me take the lockdown bar off and the glass out, and we'll slide the playfield up so we can look at it. Oh, I wanted to show you something else. The balls played unit here, the little thing is missing, but it was down inside of it. So that at some point has popped off and fell down into the bottom of the cabinet. So I don't know what the problem was that the customer was experiencing, but that could have been a big deal. We'll look at the schematics to see if we can figure out what kind of problem that would have caused. 1 point, 10 point, 100 point relays. Pretty cool. Want to hear the bell? ALOHA! And then this is a clapper over here. And only 6 score reels. Yes! Alright, so let me slide the glass out. So there's a little paperwork in it where the gentleman bought a rubber kit from Marco Specialties in 2003. So 22 years ago, Marco was selling stuff for it. So we've got, it's fairly minimal inside some of these. There's not a ton going on. We've got the hold relay has been deleted. So they just removed the relay and kept the switch closed. And we're going to leave this how all this stuff is, because this isn't our machine. And it's working how the customer likes it. So, it's not for... We're going to fix stuff, but we're not going to add in missing stuff or anything like that. But the purpose of that hold relay is so that, I believe, we'll look at the schematics, if we've got schematics. But whenever you start the game, if it's in the middle of a game, whenever you start it up, that relay will throw you into game over. So it's not completely necessary. Wow, I see some interesting stuff. All right, so... We've got the score motor, we got this big relay bank, extra shoot relay, that's coin stuff, player button relay, replay button relay, coin shoot relay, add 5 red bonus relay, T relay, B relay, this is likely some kind of hold relay too, L relay, F relay. It looks like this has been sitting a while, in my opinion. Maybe out in a shed or something. Add 5 yellow bonus relay. And then here under the playfield, you've got 2 stepper units. Those would be the bonus ones. Yep, the red bonus unit, and I guess that would be the yellow bonus unit. There's a wire broken off that must go on that switch. We'll figure out what that does. I love finding stuff like that and then looking it up on the schematics and seeing what problem that would have caused. Yeah, that's just interesting to me. And then whenever you fix it, you go, wow, it had that problem, but now it'll never have that problem again. The pop bumpers, of course. There's a lot actually on the bottom of the playfield that's not in the bottom of the cabinet. So we've got here as well, there's a switch that's bent out of the way. That should be over on this part, I would think. Or maybe not. No, I think that's actually how it's supposed to be. It's just weird because it's over on the actuator part. If it was in there, it would never actuate it. So, and they've got screws in it, so they must be mounted in the holes that it's supposed to be mounted in. 2 flippers, the 2 kickers, the 2 bonus ladders. It looks pretty good. Looks very fixable. All right, so let me see what else is in here. Okay, so I guess we'll start in the back box then. I think maybe the first thing we'll try is just putting this piece back on and seeing if that was the whole problem. If the thing actually limps along and plays after this is back in. You can kind of tell where it goes too on this particular one because there's only 1 set screw and there is a flat on the shaft. So, I don't know for sure without looking at the schematics, but it sure seems like it goes right there. What do you think? So maybe we try mounting it on there and seeing if the thing will play like that. Obviously, it needs a lot of work. And we'll just plug the Jones plugs in without cleaning them or anything, and we'll just see if the thing will do anything like that, because that's probably how the gentleman had it at his house. I talked to Joe about what the gentleman said, and he said that there was a guy that was repairing it for him, but the guy passed away or went out of business or something, and so it's just been sitting for a long time. So I hate the other thing we got to do. We're going to have to do something about this back glass. I hate that. That's just driving me crazy. I feel like paint is flaking off while we stand here. But let me get a little the Allen key so we can mount this on there and see if the thing will start at least with that just reattached. Okay, so I plugged the Jones plugs back in, didn't clean them, and I lined that up with the rivets. I'm not even sure that it goes on those first rivets. I'm just assuming. I don't have the schematics to figure it out, but and it seems to step up. We'll just leave it like that. Sometimes on these, if you reset them whenever they're at 0, some things don't completely reset, or it seems that way. We'll leave that alone. Okay, so we'll just try to start it. I plugged it in. All right, I dropped a pinball in it. Let's see if it'll do anything. I've got it plugged in. Nothing. I wonder if there's a power switch on this. I don't believe there is. Well, we have bigger fish to fry then, don't we? Maybe we should drop a coin in it with our hand. By the way, this will get you shocked. It doesn't want to cooperate. Some pinball wizard I am. I can't even get a credit on it. Yeah, we're just dead. Maybe there is a power switch somewhere. Well, there's no power switch that I see. There's a ground wire that someone's added. I see some of the strangest stuff in these games sometimes. And then it goes back there, and it's just unhooked. So I wonder if we got a fuse problem or what's the deal? What is the deal, people? I got tape on the wire. There's a inline plug on the wire. All right, well, let's see if, remember, this one doesn't have the hold relay. Let's give it a little help. Dead as a doornail. Let's try the tilt relay. We're dead. Nothing. We got nothing. Okay, well, we need to measure power coming in. So let me get a multimeter, and we'll see if we're getting power into the cabinet or not. All right, I wiggled the power plug, and something reset. So I think we're up and running. That's a shame about that Backglass. Okay, oh, you know what? Since it doesn't have the hold thing, it's going to start in the middle of the game because of where we left the ball and play unit. Right? Let's see if the flippers and everything will work right now. Oh, no, they won't on this one because we've got the playfield up. Okay, let me put the playfield back down and see what we can get happening here. All right, playfield's back down. Let's see if we can just restart it by hitting the start button. Now that we have power. This is why I like completely working through them first, so that you don't have them limping along like this. It's already back to 0. Ball and play 1. Lights came on the playfield. The ball was kicked out. We were able to lift it up into the shooter lane. This is going to be a fun game. Now, a lot of people are going to hate it because it's got the wide flippers, but oh well, just deal with it. It did go to ball 2, and it is scoring. So I think you may have been able to get the thing limping along just by replacing the ball count unit's cam on the back that had fallen off. But obviously, it needs a bunch of work. So we're going to go through it and get everything doing what it's supposed to do. Oh, a gobble hole. I forgot about those. I love a gobble hole. A lot of people hate them. So on certain games, the ball goes in the hole and it's gone. Gobble, gobble. But I think that's a cool feature. All right. Okay, yeah, so it is actually working. It's limping along. So it could have been fixed by just replacing the cam on the ball count unit. But I think if we work through it, we can get this thing playing much better, even looking better after we mess with this Backglass a little bit. And, you know, basically get the service done to it that it's going to need to last another many, many years, hopefully. So I think next up, we're going to go ahead and pull out that Backglass and try to save it. You can see from the back just the general condition. You can see that's what we're trying to save. All right. And there's a napkin in here. I don't know what, maybe that was up here so the glass wouldn't hit it. There's supposed to be like a little foam piece there. So maybe they put that in, but it's just, this is horrible. Horrible. Okay, so I need to take these brackets off, and then you can carefully lift that glass out the back, but I still got to be careful not to rub more paint off when I do that. Okay, so we were able to get it out without any more going. You can see that someone has touched it up before, but unfortunately they didn't clear it before they did that. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to use triple thick. This is like a pottery glaze. You just spray this on here everywhere the stuff's flaking from a distance, because just the aerosol will blow that paint off of there. So from a distance. And you're just basically trying to make a pool of paint, of glaze, on it. And then we're going to carefully lay saran wrap over it so that we can push the paint back down onto the glass so that it'll hold. And then put a weight on it, weights on it, so that it will hold it down. And that's really your only, that's all you can really do. Way back in the day, people used to just use packing tape to do the same thing. This one's extreme, though. This one's really, really bad, unfortunately. I'm not even going to clean it. We're going to clear over the dirt and everything, because you can't. If you try to clean that, everywhere you clean it, paint's going to come off. So we're just trying to mitigate how bad the thing gets. And then once we do this, it'll stay exactly how it is now, and it won't get any worse. And it'll at least save the back glass where it's at least somewhat usable for the gentleman. Alright, so I'm going to spray this on, and we'll get started on the saran wrap. Alright, so I'm literally going around with my hand and pressing the paint down flat. You're breaking it whenever you do that, but you're hopefully putting it in the place that it goes. Right? And since we have the saran wrap on it, you can do that without getting it on your hand. Because if I was to get it on my hand, you know, when I lifted my hand up, the paint would just come right off. Alright. So you just got to go around and do it all like that, and then put a weight on it. Basically, I sprayed so much triple thick on it that it's wet, and I'm pushing that paint down into the triple thick. And then if we put a weight on it, it'll stay like that while it dries, and then when the triple thick dries, the paint will be stuck in it. So the best thing you can hold it down with, if you've got the whole thing covered, now sometimes you're just doing like a little spot, so you end up where the back glass is all wet, but you've only got a little spot that you're actually using saran wrap on. But if you're doing the whole thing like this, the best thing you can hold it down with is just another sheet of glass. It's perfectly flat, it's heavy, we're making a glass sandwich here. So I'm going to let this dry for a couple days. It's Saturday evening. Monday we'll take this off and see how much of that wants to stay put. It's so bad, I'm probably just going to do a second coat and try it again if it doesn't all lift off with the saran wrap. So whenever it dries, if you don't get too many wrinkles in the saran wrap, which, you know, but whenever it dries and that paint is stuck there, the saran wrap will just peel right off. It sounds crazy, but it's a thing. All right, so I'm probably going to put even some more weight on top of it, and then we'll let it sit here over the weekend, and hopefully that'll at least save what little bit of paint's left in those bad areas. And you know, this makes perfect sense. This is it's a Gottlieb game that was made in Chicago, and Pac-Man was a Bally game that was made in Chicago. You know, there's an upright Pac-Man right there. All these were made in Chicago, right down the street from each other. It wanted to help, so I said, sure thing, Pac-Man. So we'll see if it'll help save the glass. All right, so the glass is still drying. It's cold. This is a cold time of year. So I put the paint on so thick that it's been a day and a half and it's still not dry. So we're going to leave it alone. I took a vacuum and vacuumed up all of the extra stuff. And so now we're ready to work on it a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean those Jones plugs that I was talking about. Someone has already done it, but I'm just going to run a little bit of light sandpaper over to clean them up a little bit more, make sure everything's good, and get that out of the way. And then I'm going to take a flat file. Now, not a real harsh one. You want one that's just barely got any kind of grit. Back in the day, they used to clean these with a business card, like a little piece of card. So you don't want anything that's going to destroy the contacts or anything, but I'm going to go through and clean those contacts on the relays here in the back box. You can see how they're open, and then they go in and close. That's what we want. So I'm going to clean those. They've been setting forever. And then we've got the 3 up here. I'm going to do the same thing. It'll be a little harder to get to, but they're right there. And make sure that everything is clean and making good contact. Now, whenever the big blade hits the smaller blade, it should move it a little bit. So I'll give you a good example. This one looks like it might be adjusted out. So see this one's real stiff, so it's not going to move, but maybe we'll look at this first one. So this big blade here, when I move this relay in, it should move that smaller blade just a little bit. Right? It's kind of, you can't really do it like that too. You got to kind of do it down here where it's going to do it mechanically. These Gottlieb ones, they have such a short throw, it's just, they don't move much, but it is barely moving. And so you just go through and check stuff like that. So if I find anything interesting, I will show you. So I got those clean, and I got those clean. Everything seems fine. So I've moved on to this 0 to 9 unit. Now the 0 to 9 unit is usually used for match, but it's actually sometimes used for other things too. So there may be playfield features that they need some kind of randomization on that they're going to use this for. And it's similar to this one, but the difference is this one just moves in one direction. So this goes over and over again in one direction. And when it does that, there is a slapper, or clapper down here that just hits the bell every time that it moves. If you do it slow, it just barely hits it, but it does it kind of violently whenever the game's doing it. Piece of paint from the Backglass, that's fun. Okay, so I'm going to clean all of these rivets to get that nice and clean. And then I'm going to clean this and put it back. Now, because it goes in one direction, it doesn't really matter where you put it, because if it's like in the wrong spot, it could always move it, right? So, you know what? I'm going to get dirt all over me. I better take off my watch. Just wait till I get my watch off. Okay, so I simply shined it up with some very fine sandpaper. We had people complaining about that. If you don't like doing it that way, you can do it the way you want to do it, you know. But that's how I do it. And then I put a little bit of super lube on it. Synthetic grease, this stuff is great. It's dielectric, that's what you want for this particular application. And the reason you put that is because it doesn't necessarily make the contact from the wiper to the pin any better, but it makes it where it turns better, which you're trying to combat friction there. And from the factory, it came with a little bit of that on there. It wasn't that exact stuff, but something similar. All right, so we're going to put that back on there. Now, if you want any of this stuff, by the way, we have a page on our website. Go to lionsarcade.com. There's a parts page up at the top. And we've got a bunch of links to stuff like this that we use in our repairs and our videos. That's on Amazon. So if you click the link, it takes you to Amazon, and it gives us a little tip for whatever you buy on Amazon. So we appreciate everybody that does that. But I'm going to put this back on. Now make sure whenever you do this too that you clean the bottom of the little snowshoes, as I call them. And then I'm going to bolt it back on, and basically I'm just going to line it up with the rivets, but it doesn't matter where it's lined up, because again it just steps in one direction over and over again. Now on this one it does matter because it has to reset to 0, but we'll mess with it next. So I got it back on there. There is an adjustment. There is an adjustment there where this will turn from one end to the other if you loosen these screws, right? So you can turn it about two rivet positions there. If I was to turn it all the way this way, it would be on that rivet, or maybe even a little farther. And all the way that way, it would be on this rivet, or maybe even down below it. So there's a heck of an adjustment there to get you how you want to be. So I just put it near the middle. And so it's on the rivets. Now it's going to ring the bell. And see how the other ones are lined up on the rivets. Perfect. That's what you want. Perfect. So I like that, and that should work really good. Now on the back of that unit, there's some gears and the lever and everything. There was grease on those, and it's still on there. Everything was working good, so I'm not even messing with that. On this one, it's a little different because there are some switches back there. So we need to look at those. So here is the back of this ball count unit. Here is the switch. So you can see that this post, when it gets to 0, is going to open that switch. Right? And close that switch. Easy peasy. Let me see if I can get it to do it. Kind of hard to do it with it sitting out, but that's how it goes. So it is back to 0. It has closed that switch and opened that switch. So that's how you want it. So I'm going to clean this to make sure that they're making good contact. But in this generation of Gottlieb, usually all of this stuff, the grease is fine, in my opinion. Now there is a stop right here. This thing will break sometimes. The purpose of that is whenever this goes in, that bar touches that stop. Right? That will break sometimes where you need to replace it. Sometimes even the coil mount up here will break. There's just lots of stuff that can be replaced, but usually I don't have to worry about the grease. So it appeared everything was working fine on this, but we'll, like I said, we'll clean this and then we'll clean the rivets on the other side like we did with that one. All right, so cleaned it up and put the dielectric grease on it. Now, like we mentioned earlier, as it steps up, this one can step up with one coil, and then it resets with another coil. So because of that, it is important where this is mounted because there's a home position. So if we had the schematics, I don't have them yet, but I guess I could look on a similar era. But basically, you can tell by looking at the schematics where the first position is, or where it resets to 0, and it will tell you like basically what wire it's connecting to what wire, and that's how you can tell where it should be. And plus, it's kind of common sense. Like this first set of rivets is the first set that it could possibly be on, so that's probably the home position. You could have a situation where it actually goes past that to where it's not on any rivets, and that's the 0 position. But I guess it just kind of depends. But this thing is nice and working perfect, or it appears to be working perfect. We still have to test it. It seemed like it was already. But I think his main problem was that this was missing. But we're getting it now where it's going to be reliable. So it will, look, I just moved it off the rivets by screwing with it. Is that loose? Oh, it's because I pushed it in. You know what? Look, it's too far out. I'm glad I looked at it. Okay, so if I push that in, what happens is it pushes the gear in on the back. Right? It shouldn't be like that. Yeah. So I need to loosen that back up and tighten it more flat. I shouldn't have that play right there. So good thing I touched it. That's why I always look at every little thing, just try to catch every little possible. It'd probably work fine like this. I mean, it did earlier, but it's not quite exactly how it should be. All right, so you can see that I pushed it in. Now you want a little bit of play like that, because if it's too tight, it'll bind, right? Perfect. Perfect. All right, so we did the Jones plugs. We did the relays. We did those relays. We did the 0 to 9 unit. We did the ball count unit, or the balls played unit on this machine. That leaves us with the coin unit, or the replay unit. Or if they have disabled, something over there. And they got something. They got something disabled. They didn't. How did they set this up on free play? What did they do? Yeah, I'm not sure how they did the free play. Maybe when it gets back to 0, there's something going on up here. Let's use a light. I can't make out what in the world they did. Oh, okay. They disconnected the wire that would it looks like they've disconnected the wire that would open when it got to 0. So where are those wires? I can't see where they did it. I'm going to win another award for my filmography here. I guess it's that brown wire there next to it. That doesn't make sense. Well, they have done something to put it on free play. So, but the whole thing is this is disabled in some way. So you go through it and rebuild it, but we're doing this for a customer, so we don't want to change his setup here. Okay, folks, so next we're going to do these score reels. This is a really good design. These things are just beefy. They're made really nice. It has this kind of brass looking metal. I don't know that it's brass though. See the rainbow effect on it? So it's like zinc or something. I don't know. I'm not the one to ask. But it's very heavy duty and nice. And Gottlieb used that for a while on all of their metal stuff. You can see it, even the bell. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these 3 screws out. Step 1. Now when you do step 1, this little retaining ring will come off. Now notice there are 6 holes in that, and they're all the same. So it doesn't matter how you put it back on. And then the score reel itself comes off. Now, it's important that it knows where 9 is, 0 is, where 9 and 0 is, basically. So the way it does that is this thing is keyed. So you see the 6 holes in here. But if you look, 3 of them in a triangle are the same size. Those are the ones that the screws go in. And then in the other triangle, this one's small, and this one's big. So that's how they key it. Now under that is this little disc here. And this is used to move around and contact different traces on this board. This also has to be in a certain order. But again, they have 3 of the screw holes in a triangle are the same size. And then in the other triangle, you have 1, 2, and then one's bigger. So those 2 are smaller, and that one's bigger. And that's how you tell how it goes back on. Now if you look on here, they mount to this little nylon cam. And you can see the 3 screw holes in a triangle, and then you can see the other 3, and one of them is bigger. It's kind of hard to tell though, to be honest. You have to look really close. So that is one of the smaller ones. And that is one of the smaller ones. And that one is bigger. So they're little nipples. And so you got some A cups, and then you got a C cup. People, there's nothing wrong with me saying, I don't know why you would get upset about that. I was very respectful about the boobs. Like, I didn't say nothing disrespectful at all. You can't get mad about that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is this cam. See how that pointed part is like pointing right there? I'm going to push the coil in and move it one spot. And by doing that, I made a little bit more of a gap here. That's important. I'll show you why. And I'm going to take this screw and this screw loose. There is a nut on the back and a washer to hold them in place. Alright, so I took them loose, and because I had that cam turned the way that I did, where it's a little more flat towards that post, you can actually kind of just shimmy this off of that post. You see what's going on there? How I took it out from that where it slides in the joint? The only way you can do it is because that thing's turned a little bit. If I turned it one more, that point would be right there, and it would be a little bit too far that way. Now you can take this out too, but it's just a little more complex. Depends on how far you want to disassemble it as well. Now, here is the coil, and when it pulls in, see how that works? Ain't it beautiful? What a freaking cool mechanism. That's what turns the score reel. So every time the score pulls in, it turns that score reel. Now, you'll see this switch here opens. That's called an end of stroke switch. They're calling it the lock-in switch because that's what locks in the score relays. So like if this is 100, when the 100-point relay pulls in, it stays in until that switch opens up. And the reason I do that is to make sure that it pulls all the way in so it can turn that score the whole way. Right? Now here is another switch. See how it's open? See how the two contacts are open? So we're turning around. It's open, it's open, it's open, it's open. It's still open. And then you get to bam, it's closed. Now why did it close? That's because that's the 9th position switch. That closes when you get to 9 displayed on the score reel. Because the next time that this pulls in, it should not only move this to 0, but it should send a pulse electricity through this switch that is closed to the next reel to make it turn from 0 to 1. So that's how they carry over from 9 to 10 instead of 9 to 0. Okay. Now when you're off 9, it's open, and it stays open the entire time. And then it will close at the next 9. Now, on this other end, there are 2 more switches. If I can get them where you can see them. Those. Right? Now those are closed the entire time you're scoring until you get to 0, which just happens to be our next number. When you get to 0, those open. The purpose of that is so that the game can reset the score the score reels at the beginning of the game. The reset relay comes on and it tells everything to reset, and it tells the score reset relay to start resetting these switches. These score reels. When it gets back to 0, that switch opens and it can't do it anymore. That's how it's resetting it, is through that switch. And then the other switch opens because the reset relay will stay on as long as one of those 6 switches is closed. So 6 of the switches are to stop the actual reel from turning, and then the other 6 switches are so that the reset relay knows that it's been done. Right? All right, so basically you want to clean those contacts and then carefully wiggle this thing back together. So when you put it back, make sure you center it. You can move this board around a little bit. Just make sure that it's not going to rub when it spins around. So the next thing I'm going to do is clean this up. Again, I use light sandpaper, but you can use Brasso or whatever your favorite thing to use is. Soapy water, a magic eraser, spit, whatever you think's great. You don't have to argue with me about it. You could just do whatever you want to do and not even mention it to me. That could work too. So I put the super lube on it and cleaned up the contacts. Cleaned up the contacts on the bottom of this plate too, because it goes on upside down. And this contact contacts those, and then this contact contacts the plate, so it's electrically conductive. But so basically you have to line it up with the 3 little nubs, AAC, and get it just right. And then you got to do that one too. And then you got to put the retainer ring on it and put the screws in. You got to do all that at one time. So I can't do it on, that's just not going to, I've got to just do it, and then you'll see it here in a second. It's, Now, if you go out of your way to force it, you can mount that thing wrong. Even though they're different sizes, because it can bend and all of that, right? Small, small, large. Now, if you notice, you'll be able to tell. See how the one has a little hole in it? And see how this bar aims straight at the 0. So the way it's set up, if you have it on wrong, you would have that bar, you would have this aimed that way. So what that would mean is when it gets to here, instead of displaying the number right, it would display it kind of like that. It wouldn't line up right. And so you'll know that you've got it on wrong because the numbers won't line up straight with the other ones. And then if you get to this other one, same thing. If I had it mounted wrong, it would be about like that, and it would be in between numbers. You'd see like half a number, right? So since it's landing square on the numbers, we know we've got it right. It's not that big of a deal. You'll figure it out. If you screw it up, just look at it close again. All right, so I'm going to put that back, and then we'll put the playfield down, and we'll start it over again and just make sure that it can reset all of those score reels. Okay, so when I hit start, the reset relays are going to come in, and it should start resetting all of those. And then when they get back to 0, it will open those switches on each one. And when the last one does it, it will let the machine know that the score reels are reset. Let's see if it works according to plan. How cool is that? All right, so it's working, but it already did, so no big deal. Now, the backglass still isn't dry, and it's just going to look how it looked before, so we're not going to be able to put that in. We're going to have to let it keep drying, so we'll mess with it on the next video. Look how the bonus didn't reset. I wonder if it's supposed to. I don't know. We haven't messed around down there yet, but that's what we'll do next time. So I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments down below, and we'll see you on the next one. Now, if you like this generation of Gottlieb pinball machine, here's one we did a while back that we really enjoyed. Check it out here. We'll see you on the next one.